Ambassador Rillith stood before the massive viewing screen in the Villani High Council chamber, watching the red dots disappear one by one from the galactic map. Each dot represented a world. Each world represented billions of lives. 3 entire star systems had gone dark in the past 6 months, consumed by the advancing Korthak Empire. The chamber fell silent as the latest report came through. Zarian Prime, home to 12 billion Villani civilians, had stopped transmitting. The last message received was a desperate plea for help before the communications array went dead. Rylith knew what that meant. The Korthak had arrived, and now 12 billion more souls were feeding the enemy war machine. "We cannot fight them," Council Leader Brex whispered, his usually calm voice shaking. "Our ships are built for exploration and trade, not war. Weapons are designed to disable, not destroy. The Korthak treat our mercy as weakness." Around the circular chamber, the 12 members of the High Council sat in stunned silence. The Villani had known peace for over 800 years. Their civilization had grown wealthy and comfortable through trade and diplomacy. They had never needed to think about war, never needed to prepare for an enemy that showed no mercy. The Korthak were different from anything the galaxy had seen before. They were insectoid creatures standing nearly 3 meters tall, with razor-sharp claws and thick armor plating. But their size was not what made them terrifying. It was their hunger. The Korthak did not simply conquer worlds. They consumed them. Every living creature on a Korth-controlled planet became food for their expanding empire. The other races refused to help, reported Military Coordinator Thane, reading from a datapad. The Zentari claim it is not their concern. The Mordock say they are too far away. The Galactic Assembly has offered to send observers and mediators, but no military support. Rillith felt his heart sink. The galactic community was built on the principle that civilized species solve their problems through discussion and compromise. No one wanted to believe that some conflicts could only be settled through violence. The Korthak had proven that belief wrong, but the galaxy was slow to accept this new reality. "There must be someone," Rillith said, moving to the central database. "Terminal, the galaxy is vast. Surely there is a species willing to help us for the right price." He began searching through the military contractor files, looking for any race that offered combat services. Most entries were small operations, single ships or tiny fleets offering protection to trading vessels. Nothing that could stand against the massive Korthak war fleets. Then he found an entry that made him pause. The file was small, almost overlooked among the larger entries. It listed a species called humans from a system-designated Sol. The entry was recent. Added to the database only 3 years ago when this species had joined the galactic community, Rillith read the basic information. The humans came from a planet called Earth, located in what the database classified as a Class 12 death world. Was not familiar with the classification system, but he assumed it meant the planet had some dangerous wildlife or harsh weather. Many species evolved on difficult worlds. What caught his attention was the services offered. Unlike other military contractors who listed specific ship types and crew numbers, the human entry simply stated, "Military assistance available. Scale of response matches scale of threat. No situation too large or too small." The pricing structure was equally unusual. Most contractors demanded payment up front or charged by the day. The humans offered something called performance-based compensation, which seemed to mean they would only be paid if they succeeded. Council Leader Brex Rillith called out, "I may have found something." The elderly Villani approached the terminal, his 6 eyes focusing on the screen. "Humans. I have never heard of this species. Are they reliable?" Rillith scrolled through the available information. The file included basic physical data showing that humans were bipedal mammals, roughly 2 meters tall with 5-digit manipulator. Appendages. They appeared to be omnivores with forward-facing eyes, suggesting they had evolved as hunters at some point in their history. "Their technology ratings are impressive," Rillith observed. "They have faster-than-light travel, energy, weapons, and defensive shields. Their ships appear to be well-armed for a species so new to galactic society. What Rylith did not understand was what the database meant by Deathworld classification. The term appeared multiple times in the human file, but always without explanation. He assumed it was some kind of galactic survey designation for worlds with dangerous conditions. The important thing is that they offer military services, Thane said, joining the conversation. And look at this. They list experience in large-scale operations and threat elimination. Sounds like exactly what we need. Council leader. Breck studied the information carefully. The price seems reasonable. They're asking for standard compensation plus territorial rights to establish a base in our outer system. Many species have asked for similar arrangements. Rylith nodded. Should I send the distress signal? What choice do we have? Brex replied sadly. Send the message. Offer them our entire planetary treasury and 3 colony worlds if they can save our people from the Korthok. Rylith composed the message carefully, following standard diplomatic protocols. They explained the situation, detailed the Korthok threat, and made the Velanis' generous offer. He sent the message toward the Sol system using the fastest communication. Method available? Quantum entanglement? Transmission? Meanwhile, 93 light-years away, Admiral Marcus Kane sat in his command chair aboard the Luna station, orbiting Earth's moon. The Sol Defense Force had been quiet for the past 5 years, with no major conflicts or threats to human space. Kane's officers were well-trained and experienced, but they had been fighting simulated battles for too long. Real combat was what they lived for. The communication from the Velani arrived during the night shift. Lieutenant Davies, the communications officer, immediately recognized the priority coding and woke Admiral Kane. Kane read the message 3 times, before calling his senior staff to an emergency meeting. Within an hour, Captain Rodriguez, General Murphy, and Intelligence Director Adams had assembled in the conference room. The situation is clear, Kane said, displaying the Velani message on the main screen. A peaceful species is being exterminated by hostile aliens. They're offering significant compensation for military assistance. Captain Rodriguez studied the tactical data included with the message. The Korthok appear to be a standard aggressive expansion species. Large fleets, heavy weapons, no regard for civilian casualties. Nothing we haven't dealt with before. The interesting part is the payment, General Murphy observed. 3 entire colony worlds plus monetary compensation. That's enough to fund our operations for decades. Intelligence Director Adams had been quietly reviewing the background information on both species. The Velani appear to be genuinely peaceful. No military conflicts in their recorded history. The Korthok, however, have consumed at least 6 different species over the past century. This is clearly a genocide scenario. Kane made his decision quickly. I'm authorizing the deployment of the 3rd Expeditionary Fleet, 12 dreadnoughts, 47 destroyers, full marine complement. We leave within 72 hours. His officers exchanged glances. The 3rd Expeditionary Fleet was humanity's largest mobile combat force, designed to handle threats to human civilization itself. Using it against the Korthok was like using a sledgehammer to swat a fly, Sir Captain Rodriguez said carefully. Are you sure we need that much firepower? The Velani only requested military assistance. A single battle group might be sufficient. Kane's expression grew cold as he reviewed the images of Korthok atrocities included in the intelligence files. Captain, when someone commits genocide, there is only one appropriate response. We don't just stop them, make sure they never have the chance to do it again. Back in Velani space, Ambassador Rylith received the human response much sooner than expected. The message was brief and to the point. Assistance authorized. Fleet en route. Estimated arrival in 14 standard days. Prepare landing zones for ground forces. Rylith felt relief wash over him. The humans were sending not just ships, but ground forces as well. That meant they were serious about helping the Velani fight the Korthok. Excellent news, Council Leader Breck said when he heard the update. 14 days gives us time to prepare a proper welcome ceremony. We should show our new allies the respect they deserve, Rylith agreed, and began planning the reception. The Velani would greet their human rescuers with all the dignity and gratitude their ancient culture could provide. It would be the beginning of a beautiful alliance between their 2 species. He had no way of knowing that he had. Just invited the most dangerous predators in the galaxy to hunt in his backyard. The space around Volani Prime filled with activity as long-range sensors detected the approaching human fleet. Ambassador Rylith stood on the bridge of the ceremonial ship Golden Dawn, watching the tactical display with growing excitement. 14 days of careful preparation, their rescuers had finally arrived. "How many ships are they bringing?" asked Military Coordinator Thane, studying the sensor readings with confusion. "The computers are having trouble getting an exact count," replied the ship's sensor operator, a young Volani named Dex. "The formation is very large, much larger than we expected." Rylith felt a moment of concern. The Volani had prepared to welcome a small fleet, perhaps 10 or 15 ships. The sensor readings suggested something much bigger, but larger meant better protection, so he pushed his worry aside. "Prepare the welcome ceremony," Rylith ordered. "Make sure our translators are ready. This is an important moment for both our species." The Golden Dawn was the finest ship in the Volani fleet, built for diplomatic missions and cultural exchanges. Its hull was decorated with beautiful artwork representing Volani history and values. The interior was designed to impress visitors with comfortable meeting rooms and elegant gardens. It was everything a peaceful civilization would use to greet. New friends Captain Alina Voss stood on the command deck of the UES Retribution, watching the same space from a very different perspective. Her ship was the lead vessel of the human fleet, a massive dreadnought designed for one purpose: destroying enemies of humanity. "Admiral Kane, we have visual contact with the Volani delegation," reported Commander Rex Bolton, her first officer. "Single ship approaching. Appears to be unarmed." "Of course it's unarmed," Kane replied over the communication link from his flagship. "These people haven't fought a real war in centuries. They don't even understand what war means." Captain Voss studied the approaching Volani ship through the main viewer. It was beautiful in its own way, but completely useless in combat. The hull was too thin to stop any serious weapon. The design prioritized comfort over protection. Looking at it made her feel like she was watching children play with toys. "Oracle, run a full tactical analysis of the Volani ship," Voss ordered. The ship's artificial intelligence responded immediately. "Analysis complete, Captain. The vessel has minimal defensive systems. No military-grade weapons detected. Estimated combat effectiveness: negligible." "What about the rest of their fleet?" Commander Bolton asked. "Long-range scans show similar design patterns throughout Volani space," Oracle reported. "All vessels appear to be built for peaceful purposes. No significant military assets detected." Captain Voss shook her head. These people had called for military assistance, but they had no idea how to fight.
Oh.
The Korthok must have been cutting through Volani defenses like a hot knife through butter. "Begin deployment of reconnaissance drones," Voss ordered. "I want eyes on every corner of this system within the hour. Start mapping jump points to Korthok territory. We'll need fast access routes for the real fighting." "Yes, Captain," Bolton replied. Relaying orders to the tactical department, the human fleet began moving with precise coordination that impressed even the experienced Volani officers watching from their diplomatic ship. Each vessel took position. According to a clearly planned formation, smaller ships spread out to establish a perimeter, while the larger vessels maintained tight formation at the center. "They move like they have done this many times before," Thane observed. "Of course they have," Rylith replied. "They are military contractors. This is their job." But as the human ships continued their deployment, Rylith began to feel less certain. The movements were too smooth, too professional. These were not simple mercenaries. This was a military force that had trained together for years. Ambassador Dex called from his sensor station. "I'm reading some unusual energy signatures from the human ships. Their weapon systems are very advanced." "How advanced?" Thane asked. "I'm not sure. Our computers cannot identify the technology. But the power readings are much higher than anything in our database." Rylith decided it was time to make contact. Open a communication channel to the lead human vessel. The main screen flickered and showed the bridge of the UES Retribution. Captain Voss appeared, and Rillith got his first look at a human being. She was smaller than he had expected, but there was something in her eyes that made him uncomfortable. Humans had forward-facing eyes like predators, and this human was looking at him the way a hunter looks at prey. "Welcome to Villani space," Rylith said, following diplomatic protocol. "I am Ambassador Rylith of the Villani High Council. We are grateful for your assistance in our time of need." "Captain Alina Voss." "U.S. Retribution," the human replied. Her voice was calm but carried an undertone that suggested she was used to giving orders and having them obeyed. "We received your distress call. We're here to deal with your Korthok problem." "Yes, well, we should discuss the terms of engagement and establish proper coordination protocols," Rylith began. "Perhaps we could arrange a formal meeting to review the tactical situation and plan our response." Captain Voss interrupted him. "Ambassador, the terms were already established in your transmission. You offered payment for military assistance against the Korthok Empire? We accepted. The tactical situation is clear from our sensor data. As for planning our response, that's already been decided." Rylith felt confused. This was not how diplomatic negotiations were supposed to work. But surely we need to coordinate our forces and establish command structures. The Villani fleet stands ready to assist your efforts. The human captain looked at him for a long moment before responding. "Ambassador, with all due respect, your fleet would be a liability in real combat. We suggest you keep your ships well away from the fighting." "A liability." Thane stepped forward, his voice rising. "We are offering to fight alongside you for our own worlds." "And we appreciate the sentiment," Captain Voss replied. "But sentiment doesn't stop enemy weapons. Your ships are built for peace. Our ships are built for war. The two don't mix well." 4. Rylith could respond. Alarms began sounding on both ships. Dex frantically worked at his controls, analyzing new sensor contacts. 3 Korthok ships have entered the system, he reported. They appear to be scouts, moving toward our position. Rylith felt his blood turn cold. 3 Korthok ships were enough to destroy the entire Villani delegation. The Golden Dawn had no weapons and could not outrun the enemy vessels. They were about to die. "Don't worry about it," Captain Voss said calmly. "Don't worry." Rylith could not believe what he was hearing. "Those are Korthok warships. They will destroy us." "No, they won't," Captain Voss replied. She turned to her tactical officer. "Bolton, you have 3 targets. Make it clean, Captain. Firing solution locked. Weapons free." On the tactical display, Rylith watched as the human fleet opened fire. But these were not the energy beams or projectile weapons he knew from galactic warfare. These were something else entirely. Weapons that moved faster than light itself and struck their targets before the Korthok. Ships even knew they were under attack. The 3 enemy vessels simply vanished. No explosion, no debris field, no emergency transmissions. They were there one moment and gone the next, erased from existence by weapons that operated beyond Villani understanding. "Targets eliminated," Commander Bolton reported. "It's very good." "Resume patrol formation," Captain Voss ordered. She turned back to the communication screen. "As I was saying, Ambassador, we'll handle the military situation. We focus on evacuation procedures for civilian populations in contested areas." Rylith stared at the empty space where the Korthok ships had been.
3 warships that could have
conquered entire Villani systems had been destroyed in seconds by weapons he could not even comprehend. "How did you do that?" he whispered. "Standard engagement protocol," Captain Voss replied. "The Korthok ships were outdated and poorly defended. We'll have more detailed discussions about planetary defense. Arrangements after we've cleared the immediate threat from your space." The communication ended, leaving the Villani delegation sitting in stunned silence. Rylith looked around at his companions, seeing his own shock reflected in their faces. "What have we brought into our space?" Thane whispered. Rylith had no answer. The humans were supposed to be helpful allies, military contractors hired to assist in their defense. But what he had just witnessed was beyond anything in his experience. These were not mercenaries. These were something else entirely. The welcome Ceremony he had planned seemed foolish now. You did not welcome forces like this with flowers and speeches. You treated them with the respect given to natural disasters, hoping they would accomplish their purpose and leave without causing too much damage to everything else around them. Send word to the High Council, Rillith said finally. Tell them. The humans have arrived. Tell them the situation has changed. War Commander Skrix stood on the command deck of his flagship, watching the bombardment of Dalit Prime continue. The Villani planet burned beneath a rain of plasma fire as his hive ships systematically destroyed the surface cities. Surviving population would be ready for harvesting. Progress report, Skrix commanded, his mandibles clicking with satisfaction. The northern continent is pacified, reported Subcommander Hax. Resistance has ceased in all major population centers. We estimate 40 million Villani remain for processing. Skrix nodded. The siege of Dalit Prime was proceeding according to standard Korthok doctrine. First, destroy all military installations. Second, eliminate transportation and communication networks. Third, terrorize the population into submission. Fourth, begin harvesting operations. The Villani had followed the usual pattern of civilized species. They had tried negotiation, offered surrender terms, and finally attempted a desperate evacuation, all predictable, all useless. The Korthak had been conquering and consuming species for centuries. They knew how peaceful civilizations responded to total war. Sir, called the sensor operator. We have incoming ships. Skrix turned to the tactical display. A fleet of unknown vessels was approaching the system at high speed. The formation was tight and purposeful, suggesting military training. Skrix was not concerned. His force included over 200 ships, enough to handle any response the galaxy could send. Identification? He asked. Unknown design patterns, not in our database. Could be Villani reinforcements? Skrix laughed, a harsh sound that echoed. Through the bridge, the Villani have no military. This must be mercenaries. How many ships? Difficult to determine. They are using some form of stealth technology. Estimated count is 60 vessels. 60 ships against 200. They must be desperate. Skrix turned to his weapons officer. Prepare the fleet for battle. Standard formation. Let these fools see what happens to those who interfere with the Korthok Empire. 5 light minutes away, General Patricia Cross stood in the command center of the UES Vengeance, reviewing the tactical situation with her senior staff. The Korthok fleet was exactly what intelligence had predicted. Large, aggressive, and completely unprepared for what was coming. Final count on enemy vessels? She asked. 207 ships, replied Colonel Blake, her tactical officer. Standard Korthok configuration. Heavy cruisers, carrier vessels, and support craft. They're maintaining a defensive formation around the planet, and civilian casualties. Extensive. The Korthok had been bombing population centers for 3 days. We estimate over 500 million dead, with another 40 million still alive on the surface. General Cross felt her jaw tighten. She had seen the reports from other Korthok conquests. These creatures did not simply kill their enemies. They tortured entire populations for sport before consuming them. The thought made her blood run cold. With controlled rage, rules of engagement, asked Major Rivers, the Marine commander. Total warfare, Cross replied without hesitation. No prisoners, no mercy, no quarter given or expected. The Korthok chose to commit genocide. We respond accordingly. The human fleet moved into attack formation with mechanical precision. Each ship knew its role. Each crew understood their mission. They had trained for this kind of operation countless times. The only difference was that this time, the enemy was real. Military Coordinator Thane watched the approaching battle from the UES Retribution, where he had been assigned as a Villani observer. Captain Voss had allowed him on the bridge to witness human military doctrine in action. Now he was beginning to regret accepting the invitation. Shouldn't you warn them first? Thane asked. Demand surrender? Follow some kind of protocol? Captain Voss looked at him with cold eyes. The Korthok had their chance to follow protocol when they chose not to commit war crimes. They gave up the right to civilized treatment when they started eating civilians. But galactic law requires formal challenges before major engagements, Thane protested. Galactic law doesn't apply to genocide, Commander Bolton replied. Human law does. And human law is very clear about what happens to species that prey on innocents. The first phase of the attack began without warning. Human ships opened fire from maximum range using weapons that moved faster than light itself. The Korthok fleet, expecting traditional bombardment patterns, was caught completely off guard. 12 Korthok vessels vanished in the first salvo, not destroyed, not damaged, but simply erased from existence. The weapons used were beyond anything. In Thane's experience, operating on principles that seemed to ignore the basic laws of physics. How are you doing that? Thane whispered. Quantum disruptor torpedoes, Captain Voss explained matter-of-factly. They break the molecular bonds that hold matter together. It's very efficient against organic armor. War Commander Scrix watched his formation dissolve in growing panic. These unknown ships were using weapons he had never seen before. Worse, they were coordinating their attacks with inhuman precision. Every shot found its target. No energy was wasted. No opportunities were missed. Return fire, he screamed. Ships, maximum firepower. The Korthok fleet unleashed its full arsenal. Plasma cannons, particle beams, and fusion missiles filled space with deadly energy. For a moment, Scrix felt hope. No ship could survive that much concentrated firepower. But the human vessels simply absorbed the attack. Their shields flared. Briefly, then returned to normal strength. The entire Korthok bombardment had accomplished nothing. Impossible, Sub-Commander Hax whispered. Our weapons should have penetrated their defenses. Prep the hive ships for ramming attacks, Scrix ordered. If we cannot destroy them at range, we will board and tear them apart with our claws. The massive Korthok carrier vessels began moving toward the human fleet. Each ship carried thousands of warriors bred for close combat. Even if the enemy had superior technology, they could not match Korthok ferocity in personal combat. That was when the humans revealed their second surprise. Boarding parties stand by for deployment, General Cross ordered from the Vengeance. Target the enemy command ships. Colonel Blake replied. Teleportation matrices are locked on target vessels. Marines are ready for insertion. Thane turned to Captain Voss in confusion. Teleportation? That's impossible. No species has mastered matter transportation over combat distances, Humazath, Voss replied simply. Throughout the Korthok fleet, human soldiers began materializing directly inside enemy ships. But these were not the kind of soldiers Thane had seen in galactic peacekeeping forces. These humans wore armor that enhanced their strength and speed beyond natural limits. They carried weapons designed not just to kill, but to inspire terror. Major Rivers led the assault on Scrix's flagship personally. His squad appeared on the Korthok command deck in flashes of blue light, weapons already firing. The bridge, which moments before had been filled with confident warriors, became a slaughterhouse. Secure the command center, Rivers ordered, stepping over the bodies of dead Korthok officers. Download their computer files. I want intelligence on all their operations. Scrix tried to charge the human invaders, but found himself facing something beyond his understanding. These creatures moved like machines, fought without fear, and showed no reaction to pain. When his claws raked across human armor, the soldiers simply ignored the damage and continued killing. What are you? Scrix gasped, as Rivers pointed a weapon at his head. Justice, Rivers replied, and pulled the trigger. Throughout the Korthok fleet, similar scenes played out. Human boarding parties appeared inside enemy vessels and systematically eliminated all resistance. They worked with cold efficiency, showing no emotion as they turned Korthok ships into metal tombs within 30 minutes. The entire enemy fleet was either destroyed or captured. No. 207 ships reduced to scrap metal and corpses. The humans had not lost a single vessel. Status. Report, General Cross requested. All enemy ships neutralized, Colonel Blake reported. Boarding teams have secured command centers and downloaded intelligence data. Casualty report, 0 human dead, 14 wounded. And the Korthok, complete elimination, no survivors. General Cross nodded. Begin planetary operations. Want all Korthok ground forces eliminated within 6 hours. Rules of engagement remain unchanged. Thane stood in shocked silence as he watched human dropships launch toward Dalit Prime, the planets. The surface was still burning from the Korthok bombardment, but that did not seem to concern the human soldiers. They were going down to finish what the fleet had started. He killed them all, Thane whispered. Yes, Captain Voss confirmed. Every single one. That's what happens when you make enemies of humanity. We don't just defeat our opponents. We eliminate them as a threat. But they tried to surrender at the end. I heard their transmissions. Too late, Commander Bolton replied. They should have thought about surrender before they started eating civilians. Human doctrine is clear. Genocide demands total response. Thane watched the human assault forces descend toward the burning planet. He began to understand the true horror of what the Villani had unleashed. These were not rescuers or protectors. These were apex predators who had found their perfect prey. The Korthok Empire had ruled through fear and overwhelming force for centuries. In 30 minutes, they had learned what real fear looked like. Unfortunately for them, the lesson had come too late to save them. Admiral Kane stood in the main conference room aboard his flagship, studying the holographic display that showed the current tactical situation. The battle at Dalit Prime had been a complete success, but Kane was not satisfied. His senior officers sat around the table, waiting for orders. The Korthok fleet has been eliminated, reported Captain Rodriguez from her position at the tactical station. All enemy ground forces on Dalit Prime have been neutralized. The planet is secure. Casualties? Kane asked. Minimal? 12 wounded? No deaths? The enemy was unprepared for our combat doctrine. General Murphy leaned forward in his chair. The Korthok survivors are retreating toward their home territory. Our long-range sensors show at least 50 ships fleeing the battle zone. Good, Kane said coldly. That means they'll spread word about what happened here. Fear is a useful weapon. Intelligence Director Adams activated her own display, showing a detailed map of Korthok space. I've been analyzing the data recovered from enemy ships. The Korthok Empire is larger than we initially thought. Over 40 star systems, with a total population exceeding 200 billion. 200 billion genocidal monsters, Kane replied. What's your assessment of their military capability? Extensive but outdated? They rely on overwhelming numbers and brute force tactics. Their technology is at least 50 years behind current human standards. However, their industrial capacity is impressive. They can replace losses quickly. Kane studied the map for several minutes, considering his options. The Villani had hired humans to stop the Korthok threat. A traditional military response would involve defending Villani territory and perhaps pushing the enemy back to their borders. But Kane was thinking on a much larger scale. Recommendations? He asked his staff. We could establish a defensive perimeter around Villani space, Captain Rodriguez suggested. Station patrol fleets to prevent future incursions. The Korthok would eventually seek easier targets elsewhere. That's a short-term solution. General Murphy disagreed. As long as the Korthok Empire exists, they'll be a threat to every peaceful species in this sector. They've already consumed 6 civilizations. They won't stop voluntarily. Intelligence Director Adams nodded in agreement. The Korthok reproductive cycle is tied to conquest. They need constant expansion to maintain their population growth. Peaceful coexistence is not possible with this species. Kane made his decision. We're going to eliminate the Korthok Empire completely. The room fell silent. Captain Rodriguez looked concerned. Sir, that would require offensive operations deep into enemy territory. The Villani only requested defensive assistance. Levani requested help stopping a genocidal threat, Kane corrected. The only way to permanently stop that threat is to remove it entirely. We're not just going to defeat the Korthok. We're going to make sure they never threaten anyone again. Meanwhile, in the Villani High Council chambers, Ambassador Relith was receiving reports about the human victory at Dalit Prime. The news should have been cause for celebration, but instead, he felt deeply troubled. They killed every Korthok in the system, military coordinator Thane reported. Not just the military forces, every single one. Even the ones who tried to surrender. Council leader Brex looked confused. Surely some survived. Prisoners for interrogation, witnesses for war crimes trials. No survivors, Thane confirmed. The humans don't take prisoners from species they classify as genocidal. They consider it a waste of resources. Rillith felt sick. The Vallani had hoped for protection, not extermination. We must contact Admiral Kane immediately. We need to establish proper rules of engagement before this goes too far. But when Rylith tried to reach the human commander, he was politely redirected to lower-ranking officers. Admiral Kane was busy planning the next phase of operations and could not be disturbed. In Korthok space, Emperor Vex received the terrible news about Dalit Prime while in his breeding chambers. Deep beneath the surface of the Imperial homeworld, the massive creature, larger than most buildings, listened to the report with growing rage and fear. An entire fleet destroyed. Vex's voice shook the chamber walls. 200 ships eliminated in less than an hour? War Commander Drex I, of the few survivors from the battle, cowered before his emperor. The humans use weapons we do not understand, my lord. Our ships could not penetrate their defenses. Their soldiers appeared inside our vessels, using some form of matter transportation. Impossible. No species has such technology. I saw it with my own eyes, Emperor. These creatures are not like the soft species we have conquered before. They fight like demons. They show no fear, no mercy, no hesitation. When they kill, they do so with mechanical precision. Emperor Vex had ruled the Korthok Empire for over 3 centuries. He had personally led the conquest of dozens of worlds, feasting on the populations of entire civilizations. The concept of fear was alien to him. But now, for the first time in his long life, he felt something he had never experienced before. Recall all fleets to the core systems, he ordered. Establish defensive positions around our most important worlds. These humans will not find us as easy to defeat as they think. But Admiral Kane had no intention of giving the Korthok time to prepare defenses. The human fleet moved into enemy territory with predatory efficiency, striking at targets throughout the Empire. They did not attack military installations or fortified worlds. Instead, they went after something much more valuable: infrastructure. Commander Bolton led a strike force against the Korthok's primary shipyard facility in the Nexus system. The installation was massive, capable of producing 50 warships per month. It was also completely undefended, since no enemy had ever penetrated this deep into Korthok space. Target acquired, Bolton reported to his squadron. Begin bombardment. The human ships opened fire with weapons specifically designed to destroy industrial facilities. Within minutes, the shipyard was reduced to molten metal and debris. Centuries of Korthok engineering and construction wiped out in a single attack. Facility destroyed, Bolton confirmed. Moving to secondary targets, similar attacks took place throughout Korthok space. Fuel depots, communication relays, food production centers, and transportation hubs were systematically eliminated. The humans were not just attacking the Korthok military. They were dismantling the entire civilization. Intelligence Director Adams coordinated the campaign from her command ship, analyzing intercepted Korthok communications and identifying the most critical targets. Their supply network is collapsing, she reported to Admiral Kane. Food shortages are already being reported on 7 worlds. Good. Hungry enemies make mistakes. What about their command structure? We've identified the locations of all major Korthok leaders. Recommendation: surgical strikes to eliminate their entire governing body. Kane nodded. Approved. Make it look like accidents if possible. I want their empire to collapse from within as well as without. The assassination campaign began immediately. Korthok generals, admirals, and planetary governors began dying in mysterious explosions, equipment failures, and other seemingly random accidents. The human strike teams responsible for these deaths were invisible. Leaving no trace of their presence, Emperor Vex found himself isolated in his underground palace, surrounded by layers of security, but feeling more vulnerable than ever before. His communications with the outer systems had been cut. His military commanders were disappearing one by one. His industrial base was being systematically destroyed. "How can we fight an enemy we cannot see?" demanded of his remaining advisors. "Perhaps we should attempt negotiation," suggested Chancellor Mox, one of the few senior officials still alive. "Offer territorial concessions or tribute payments." "Never," Vex roared. "The Korthok Empire does not negotiate with inferior species." But even as he spoke, Vex knew his empire was dying. The humans had done something no enemy had ever accomplished before. They had made the Korthok afraid. On the bridge of his flagship, Admiral Kane reviewed the progress reports with satisfaction. The Korthok Empire was collapsing ahead of schedule. Their military was scattered and demoralized. Their industrial capacity was gone. Their leadership was dead or hiding. "Phase 3 can begin whenever you're ready, Admiral," Intelligence Director Adams reported. "We've identified the location of their breeding worlds and primary population centers." Kane studied the target list. 47 worlds containing the majority of the Korthok species. Billions of creatures who had spent centuries devouring other civilizations. The final phase of the operation would determine whether the Korthok survived as a species or joined their victims in extinction. "Begin preparation for planetary bombardment," Kane ordered. "Full sterilization protocol. I want every Korthok world reduced to uninhabitable rock." His officers began implementing the order without question. This was what they had trained for. This was justice for the billions of innocents the Korthok had consumed over the centuries. The hunt was almost over. 3 months after the first human ship had entered Villani space, Emperor Vex sat alone in the deepest chamber of his underground palace. The massive Korthok ruler, once the terror of a dozen star systems, now trembled as he listened to the final reports from his dying empire. "The breeding world of Korax has gone silent," reported his last remaining general through a crackling communication link. "No response from any of our colonies in the Outer Rim. The humans have sterilized everything, my lord. Everything." Ups closed his compound eyes in defeat. The Korthok Empire, which had dominated this sector of the galaxy for over 4 centuries, no longer existed. In 3 months, the humans had reduced his people from a galactic power to scattered survivors, hiding in asteroid belts and forgotten outposts. "How many of us remain?" Vex asked, though he dreaded the answer. "Perhaps 1 million scattered across space, maybe fewer. The humans have not just destroyed our world's emperor. They have eliminated our ability to reproduce, to rebuild, to ever threaten anyone again." The communication ended, leaving Vex in silence. He knew the humans were coming for him too. Their ships had been detected in the home system, methodically hunting down the last remnants of Korthok civilization. Soon, even his heavily fortified palace would fall. Above ground, Kane stood on the bridge of his flagship as it orbited the Korthok homeworld. The planet's surface was scarred and lifeless, its cities reduced to radioactive craters. But Kane was not satisfied with simple destruction. He wanted to send a message that would echo throughout the galaxy for generations. "Status of the underground? Complex?" he asked Intelligence Director Adams. "We've mapped the entire structure. Emperor Vex is in the deepest chamber, approximately 3 kilometers below ground. Conventional weapons cannot reach him at that depth." "What about unconventional weapons?" Adams smiled coldly. "We could use a deep penetration quantum charge. It would crack the planet's crust and collapse the entire underground network. Vex would be buried alive along with any remaining Korthok hiding down there." Kane considered this option. It would be fitting justice for a creature who had spent centuries burying other species beneath the weight of his empire. "Do it. But I want him to know it's coming. Send a final message to Emperor Vex before we fire." Meanwhile, in Villani space, Ambassador Rillith sat in his private chambers reading reports that filled him with horror and regret. The humans had not simply defeated the Korthok Empire. They had erased it from existence with methodical precision that terrified every civilized species in the galaxy. 47 worlds sterilized, he read aloud to himself. Estimated Korthok casualties, 99.7% of total population. The survivors scattered and unable to maintain technological civilization. Military Coordinator Thane entered, the chamber carrying additional reports. The galactic community is in panic, he announced. Every major species is sending diplomatic missions to Earth. They want to establish peace treaties and non-aggression pacts. Can you blame them? Rillith asked bitterly. We hired humans to stop a threat to our people. Instead, we unleashed something that makes the Korthok look peaceful by comparison. The humans completed their contract exactly as agreed, Thane pointed out. The Korthok threat to Vallani territory has been permanently eliminated. At what cost? An entire species has been driven to near extinction. Millions of lives ended. This is not the kind of help we wanted. Thane sat down heavily in a nearby chair. What we wanted is irrelevant now. The humans have demonstrated their capabilities to the entire galaxy. Every species knows what happens to those who commit genocide, while humans are watching. Back on the Korthok homeworld, Emperor Vex received Admiral Kane's final transmission in his underground chamber. The human appeared on his communication, screened with the same cold expression he had worn throughout the campaign. Emperor Vex, Kane began. Your empire is finished. Your species is scattered. Your threat to innocent civilizations has been permanently ended. In 5 minutes, this planet will be destroyed along with everything on it. Vex found his voice through the fear that now consumed him. You have already won, human. Why continue this slaughter? Some of my people had nothing to do with the conquests. They were innocent. Kane's expression did not change. Your people consumed 6 entire civilizations over the past century. Trillions of innocent beings died to feed your expansion. Did you show mercy to the children of those species? Did you spare the innocent when you burned their worlds? That was different. We were following our nature. We needed to expand to survive, and we were following our nature, Kane replied. We protect the innocent and eliminate threats to peaceful civilization. Your nature made this conflict inevitable. Your choices made this outcome certain. Wait, Vex pleaded. Perhaps we can reach some agreement. Reparations, territorial restrictions, supervised rehabilitation of my species. No, Kane said simply. You had centuries to choose a different path. You chose genocide repeatedly. Now you face the consequences of those choices. History will remember the Korthok Empire as a lesson about what happens to species that prey. Upon the defenseless, the transmission ended. 5 minutes later, the quantum charge detonated deep within the planet's core. The explosion cracked the world like an egg, sending massive chunks of rock spinning into space. Emperor Vex and the last remnants of the Korthok leadership died instantly. Buried beneath billions of tons of molten stone, Admiral Kane watched the destruction with satisfaction, signaled the fleet. Mission accomplished. All ships prepare for return to Vallani space. 2 weeks later, Kane met with Ambassador Rylith in the conference room aboard the UES Retribution. The Vallani diplomat looked older and more tired than when they had first met. The reality of what his people had unleashed weighed heavily on his conscience. The payment we promised, Rylith began, accessing his financial accounts. Three colony worlds and our planetary treasury has agreed in the original contract. Kane waved dismissively. Keep your payment, Ambassador. Consider our intervention a gift to the galactic community. Oh. Rylith looked confused. But the contract specified compensation. For services rendered, contract has been superseded by larger considerations, Kane explained. Earth is establishing permanent security arrangements in this sector. Any future threats to peaceful species will be met with immediate response. Permanent security arrangements? Rylith felt a chill run down his spine. What does that mean? Exactly. It means humanity is now responsible for maintaining peace in this region of space. We will station patrol fleets throughout the sector to monitor for potential threats, eliminated before they can harm innocent populations. But that would make humans the dominant military power in the entire sector, Rylith protested. Yes, Kane agreed matter-of-factly. That is exactly what it means. 3 months later, Ambassador David Stone stood before the Galactic Assembly in the Great Hall on Centauri Station. Representatives from over 200 species, sat in absolute silence as he delivered humanity's formal statement to the galactic community. The human species takes its responsibility to protect peaceful civilization very seriously, Stone announced. We have seen what happens when aggressive species are allowed to prey upon the innocent. The Korthok Empire was permitted to consume 6 civilizations before anyone took effective action to stop them. He paused, letting his words sink in among the assembled delegates. This will not happen again. Humanity now extends its protection to all peaceful species in this sector of the galaxy. We offer friendship and cooperation to those who share our values of peace and mutual respect. For those who choose aggression and conquest, you have seen the fate of the Korthak Empire. That is your only warning. The hall remained silent for several minutes after Stone finished speaking. Finally, the Zentari delegate raised a tentacle to ask a question. What if the galactic community chooses not to accept human protection? Stone's answer was delivered with a smile that never reached his eyes. That choice is, of course, yours to make. But understand that protection and non-interference are 2 different things. Humanity will not allow genocide to occur while we have the power to prevent it, regardless of political considerations. As the delegates filed out of the assembly hall in worried clusters, the balance of galactic power had fundamentally shifted. The age of peaceful diplomacy and civilized warfare was over. Humanity had taken responsibility for enforcing justice in the galaxy. Whether the galaxy wanted that protection or not, the Villani had called for help against a dangerous enemy. They had received exactly what they asked for. But in saving themselves from the Korthak Empire, they had made humanity the new apex predator of their corner of the universe. Peace had been restored to the galaxy. The price of that peace was the freedom to choose their own destiny. Captain Kira Voss wiped the sweat from her forehead as she checked the navigation panel of her cargo ship, Harmony's Edge. The stars outside looked peaceful, but space was never truly safe. She had been running supplies to the outer colonies for 3 years now, and each trip felt longer than the last. Another boring run to Station 7, she muttered to herself. The cargo hold was full of medical supplies and food packets. Nothing exciting. Just the usual stuff that kept people alive on the edge of human space. Dr. Alina Reeves sat in the passenger seat next to her. She was a scientist who studied alien languages and cultures. Alina had joined this trip to deliver some research equipment to the colony. She was quiet most of the time, always reading something on her datapad. "Captain," Alina said suddenly, looking up from her work, "are you getting any strange signals on your communication system?" Kira frowned and checked her instruments. "Everything looks normal. Why do you ask?" "I thought I heard something a few minutes ago. Like voices, but not human voices." Alina moved to the communication console and started adjusting the settings. "There, listen to that." Kira heard it too now. A faint crackling sound mixed with what might have been voices, but the voices sounded wrong, like they were speaking a language she had never heard before. "That's odd," Kira said. "Let me try to clean up the signal." She worked on the controls, trying to remove the static and background noise. The signal became clearer, but it was definitely not human. The voices sounded desperate, almost like they were crying. "Alina, can you understand any of this?" Kira asked. Alina listened carefully, her face growing serious. "This is not any language in our database, but the tone." "Captain, I think this is a distress call." Kira felt a chill run down her spine. A distress call from an unknown alien species could mean many things. Most of them were not good. "Can you figure out where it's coming from?" she asked. Alina worked on her equipment for several minutes. "Yes, I think so. The signal is coming from the Kepler 442 system. That's about 2 light years from here." "That system is supposed to be empty," Kira said. "There's no colonies, no mining operations, nothing." "Well, someone is there now," Alina replied. "And they're in trouble." Kira stared at the star charts on her screen. Going to investigate would delay their supply, run by at least a week. The colonies were expecting their shipment. But if someone needed help, keep working on that signal, she told Alina. "I'm changing our course." For the next 6 hours, Alina worked non-stop to decode the alien message. She used every translation, program and pattern recognition software on the ship. Slowly, piece by piece, she began to understand. Captain Alina called out, her voice shaking. "You need to hear this." Kira joined her at the communication station. Lena had managed to translate parts of the message into text on her screen. "Help us," Kira read aloud. "They are coming. The Void Reapers destroy everything. Our world is dying. Please, someone remember us." The words repeated over and over, mixed with coordinates and technical data that Alina was still trying to understand. Void Reapers? Kira said. "That doesn't sound good." "There's more," Alina said. "They mention other worlds, other species." "Captain, I think we're listening to the last message from an entire civilization." Before Kira could respond, their sensors detected something ahead. A small object drifting in space near the coordinates from the signal. "It's an escape pod," Kira said, reading the scanner data. "It's alien design, but it has a life support system. There's someone inside." "Are they alive?" Alina asked. "Barely. Life signs are very weak." Kira didn't hesitate. She activated the ship's tractor beam and pulled the escape pod into their cargo bay. Then she and Alina put on protective suits and went to investigate. The pod was strange looking, made of a blue-green metal that seemed to shimmer in the light. It was small, just big enough for one person, or one alien. "The design is beautiful," Alina whispered. "Look at these symbols carved into the surface." Kira was more practical. "How do we open it?" Alina found what looked like a control panel and carefully pressed a symbol that seemed to glow when she touched it. The pod opened with a soft hissing sound. Inside was a creature unlike anything either of them had ever seen. It was roughly humanoid, but taller and thinner than a human. Its skin was pale blue, and it had large, dark eyes. It was unconscious and breathing very slowly. "We need to get it to the medical bay," Kira said. They carefully moved the alien to their small medical facility. Alina used the universal medical scanner to check its condition. "It's severely dehydrated and malnourished," Alina reported. "But I think it will survive." While Alina took care of their unexpected passenger, Kira returned to the pod to look for clues. She found a small device that looked like it might be a data recorder. "Alina, can you hook this up to our computers?" she asked when she returned to the medical bay. "I can try," Alina said, "but it might take some time to figure out their technology." 3 hours later, Alina had made a breakthrough. The device contained holographic recordings. When she activated it, 3-dimensional images appeared in the air above the medical bed. The images showed a beautiful world with blue oceans and silver cities. The people looked like the alien in their medical bay, but these ones were healthy and happy. There were families, children playing, scientists working in laboratories. Then the images changed. Dark ships appeared in the sky above the planet. The ships were huge, bigger than anything humans had ever built. They looked like they were made of black metal and had no lights or markings. "The Void Reapers," Alina whispered. The next images were horrible. The dark ships fired beams of energy at the planet below. Entire cities disappeared in bright flashes. The beautiful oceans turned dark and lifeless. The people ran in panic, but there was nowhere to hide. "This is genocide," Kira said, her voice full of anger. The recording showed the final days of the planet. A small group of survivors had managed to escape in pods, but one by one, the Void Reaper ships found and destroyed them. Only one pod had gotten away. The alien in their medical bay was the last of its species. "We have to report this to Earth Command," Kira said.
"Wait,"
Alina said. "There's more." The final part of the recording showed star charts and navigation data. The Void Reapers were not just destroying random worlds. They were following a specific path through space, conquering system after system. Alina traced the path on her computer. Her face went white. "Captain," she said quietly, "according to this data, Earth is next on their list." At that moment, their long-range sensors began beeping. Kira ran to the navigation console and checked the readings. Far away at the very edge of sensor range, she could see them. Ships, hundreds of them, all heading toward human space. The Void Reapers had found Earth. Admiral Marcus Blake stood in the command center of Luna Station, staring at the massive holographic display that showed the entire solar system. Red dots marked the approaching enemy fleet, still days away, but growing larger with each passing hour. How many ships? He asked his aide, Lieutenant Commander Fox. Our best estimate is 800 vessels, sir. Maybe more. The fleet is so large that our sensors can't get an accurate count. Blake had been in the military for 30 years. He had fought pirates, rebels, and hostile alien species. But he had never seen anything like this. Where's the alien survivor? He asked. In the medical facility, sir? Dr. Reeves is with him. They're trying to get more information. Blake nodded. Send word to Earth Command. I want every available ship recalled to Earth immediately, and get me a meeting with the War Council in 1 hour. The War Council meeting room was on the top level of Luna Station. Through the large windows, Earth looked peaceful and blue in the distance. But Blake knew that peace would not last long. General Rebecca Torres arrived first. She was the head of Earth's planetary defense systems, a tough woman who had worked her way up from the enlisted ranks. Behind her came Ambassador Lu Wei, Earth's chief diplomat, and Dr. Marcus Stone, the head of Earth's Science Division. Gentlemen, ladies, Blake began as they sat around the table. We have a problem, a big one. He activated the holographic display in the center of the table. It showed the recordings that Captain Voss had brought back from the alien escape pod. This is the Malari homeworld, Blake explained as the beautiful planet appeared in the display. Population, 2 billion. They were a peaceful species, focused on art and science. The display changed to show the dark ships arriving and the destruction that followed. The Void Reapers completely destroyed their world in less than 6 hours, Blake continued. No survivors except for one refugee who is now in our medical bay. Ambassador Li Wei leaned forward. We tried to communicate with these Void Reapers. Perhaps there's a way to negotiate. Negotiate? General Torres laughed harshly. Did you see what they did to that planet? They're not interested in talking. We should at least try, Li Wei insisted. Maybe they want something we can give them. Blake shook his head. I've studied the recordings. They don't take prisoners. They don't demand surrender. They just destroy everything. Dr. Stone spoke. I've been analyzing their technology. Their ships are incredibly advanced. Our weapons might not be effective against them. Then what do you suggest? Blake asked. We could try to evacuate Earth, Stone said quietly. Get as many people as possible to the colony worlds. Evacuate 4 billion people? Torres said. That's impossible. We don't have enough ships. The room fell silent. Everyone knew she was right. There is another option, Blake said slowly. Project Prometheus. What? The others stared at him. Project Prometheus was so classified that even most military commanders didn't know about it. You're talking about activating the defense grid? Torres said. Blake, that project isn't ready. It's never been tested. What's Project Prometheus? Li Wei asked. Blake hesitated, then decided they needed to know. For the past 10 years, Earth has been secretly building a planetary defense system. Weapons platforms hidden in asteroids. Stealth ships stationed throughout the solar system. Defense satellites that look like space junk. You built a secret military system without telling the civilian government? Lu Wei looked angry. Military Council approved it after the Centauri incident, Blake replied. We learned that space is dangerous. Earth needed protection. But before anyone could respond, the door opened. Dr. Elena Reeves entered, followed by Captain Voss and another person none of them recognized. Admiral Blake, Dr. Reeves said. I'd like you to meet Tevik. He's the Malari survivor. Tevik was tall and thin, with pale blue skin and large dark eyes. He wore simple clothes that Dr. Reeves had given him. When he spoke, his voice was soft, but clear. Thank you for saving me, he said in accented English. Dr. Reeves has been teaching me your language. Can you tell us about the Void Reapers? Blake asked. Tevik's expression grew sad. They came to our world without warning. Their ships blocked out the sun. They spoke to us only once, to demand that we kneel before them. When we refused, they began the destruction. What do they want? Li Wei asked. To prove they are the strongest, Tevik replied. They have destroyed 47 worlds. They keep records of each conquest. They told us we were number 47. How do you know this? Torres asked. I was on their ship, Tevik said quietly. They captured me. And others. They wanted us to watch as they destroyed our world. They said it would break our spirits. But you escaped, Blake said. Yes, there was a battle between two of their commanders. In the confusion, I stole an escape pod. I sent the distress signal, hoping someone would find it and know what was coming.
Doctor?
Stone leaned forward. What can you tell us about their technology? Their ships are very old, Tevik said. They have been traveling through space for thousands of years, but they are not scientists. They only know how to destroy. That's something, Torres said. If they're not innovating, we might have a chance. Tevik shook his head. You don't understand? They have destroyed civilizations much more advanced than yours. The Crystalline Empire had weapons that could destroy stars. Void Reapers defeated them. The room fell silent again. There's something else, Tevik continued. They know about Earth. They know about humans. What do you mean? Blake asked. They call you the Deathworld species. They have heard stories about human warriors. They're coming here not just to destroy you, but to test themselves against. You test themselves? Dr. Reeves asked. They believe humans are the greatest fighters in the galaxy, Tevik explained. They want to prove they are stronger than the legendary Deathworld warriors. Blake felt a chill. They're coming here for a fight, as Tevik said, and they are bringing something special. They have ships carrying the survivors of every world they've conquered. They want these slaves to watch as they destroy the famous. Human fighters? Slaves? Torres stood up, her face red with anger. They're bringing prisoners. Millions of them, Tevik said. The broken remains of 47 civilizations. They are kept alive to serve as examples of what happens to those who resist. Blake made his decision. General Torres, activate Project Prometheus. All defense platforms. All hidden ships. Everything. Sir, if we activate the grid, it will be visible to every telescope on Earth, Torres warned. The civilians will panic. Then, we tell them the truth, Blake said. We're going to war. Ambassador Lioe stood up. I cannot support this. There must be a diplomatic solution. The diplomatic solution is victory, Blake replied. We're not going to kneel to these monsters. He turned to Tevik. You said they've destroyed 47 worlds? Help us make sure Earth isn't number 48. Tevik nodded. I will help. You. But you should know something else. The Void Reapers are not just coming to destroy Earth. They are running from something. Something that has been chasing them across the galaxy. What could be worse than them? Dr. Stone asked. Tevik's dark eyes grew even darker. I don't know. But whatever it is, the Void Reapers are terrified of it. Captain Jake Morrison watched the enemy ships through the view screen of his stealth destroyer, Shadow's Edge. The Void Reaper advance fleet had arrived at Titan Station, humanity's first line of defense. Morrison's ship was hidden behind one of Saturn's moons, completely invisible to enemy sensors. How many ships? Lieutenant Santos. Morrison asked his tactical officer. Lieutenant Anna Santos studied her instruments carefully. 37 vessels, Captain. They're different sizes, but all of them are huge. The smallest one is twice the size of our largest battleship. Morrison nodded grimly. A small fleet of stealth ships was supposed to gather information about the enemy, not fight them. Dud. But as he watched the Void Reaper ships moving to our Titan station, he knew they had to do something. Captain Santos said suddenly, I'm reading something strange. Some of those ships have mixed life signs. Mixed how? Human technology shows different types of aliens on the same ships. It's like they have crews from different species. I remembered what Tevik had told them about slaves. They're using prisoners as crew members. Sir, if we attack those ships, we'll be killing the prisoners too, Santos said. Morrison thought for a moment. The mission was to slow down the enemy advance, but he couldn't bring himself to kill innocent prisoners. Change of plans, he said. We're going to board one of those ships, sir. Santos looked surprised. That's incredibly dangerous. So is letting them reach Earth with slave crews, Morrison replied. Send a message to the other stealth ships. We're going to try something new. An hour later, Morrison and his boarding team were in their assault pod, moving toward the smallest Void Reaper vessel. They had chosen it because the life sign readings showed it had the fewest actual enemy soldiers. Remember, Morrison told his team over the comm system, "We're here to rescue prisoners, not start a war. Get in, free as many as we can, get out." The assault pod attached to the enemy ship's hull. Morrison's engineer, Petty Officer Davis, used a cutting torch to make an opening. The team moved inside, quickly and quietly. The inside of the Void Reaper's ship was dark and cold. The walls were made of the same black metal as the outside, and strange symbols glowed faintly in the corridors. "This way," Morrison whispered. Following his scanner toward the largest group of life signs, they found the prisoners in a large cargo hold. There were dozens of them, maybe 100, all from different alien species. They were chained to the walls and looked weak and frightened. Among them, Morrison saw something that made his blood boil. Some of the prisoners were wearing torn military uniforms from species he didn't recognize. They had been soldiers once, forced to fight for their captors, get those chains off them. Morrison ordered his team as they worked to free the prisoners. One of them approached Morrison. It was a tall, graceful being with silver skin and 4 arms. Despite being a prisoner, it moved with the confidence of a warrior. "You are human," it said in accented English. "Yes, we're here to rescue you. I am Nyx, formerly of the Crystalline Empire Royal Guard. I have been a slave for 3 years. Morrison felt a chill. The Crystalline Empire was one of the most advanced civilizations in the galaxy. If they had fallen to the Void Reapers, what chance did humanity have? "Can you fight?" Morrison asked. Nyx smiled, showing sharp teeth. "Captain, I have been waiting 3 years for someone to ask me that question." The rescue operation continued for 20 minutes. Morrison's team freed 87 prisoners from 12 different species. But as they prepared to leave, alarms began sounding throughout the ship. "They know we're here," Santos reported over the comm. "Void Reaper soldiers are moving toward your position." "How many?" Morrison asked. 20, maybe 30. "They're heavily armed." Morrison looked at the freed prisoners. Many of them were too weak to fight, but some, like Nyx, looked ready for battle. "Anyone who can fight, stay with us," Morrison announced. "Everyone else, get to the escape pods." Nyx and 15 other former soldiers stayed behind. They picked up weapons from fallen guards and prepared for battle. The first Void Reaper soldiers appeared at the end of the corridor. They were tall and covered in dark armor that made them look like living shadows. They carried energy weapons that glowed with red light. "For our fallen worlds," Nyx shouted and charged. The battle was fierce but short. The Void Reapers were tough, but they had not expected organized resistance from their former slaves. Morrison's team and the freed prisoners fought with a fury that surprised everyone. When the shooting stopped, all the Void Reaper soldiers were dead. Morrison's team had suffered only minor injuries. "We need to get out of here," Santos reported. "More enemy ships are coming." As they moved toward their escape pods, Nyx grabbed Morrison's arm. "Captain, there is something you must see first." "Something important." She led him to the ship's command center. In the middle of the room was a strange device that looked like a crystal sphere surrounded by floating screens. "What is it?" Morrison asked. It contains the memories," Nyx explained. "Every world the Void Reapers destroy, they take its history, its culture, its people's memories. They keep them here like trophies." Morrison stared at the device. "You mean the souls of destroyed civilizations are trapped in there? Not just souls? Everything. Art, music, literature, science. The Void Reapers steal the very essence of what makes a species unique." Morrison felt sick. This was worse than genocide. It was the complete erasure of entire cultures. He asked. "No," Nyx said, "but we can take it. If we can get this back to your people, perhaps your scientists can find a way to restore what was stolen." Morrison made a quick decision. "Davis, disconnect that thing. We're taking it with us." His engineer worked on the device. Morrison's comm system activated. But the voice that came through was not from his ship. "Human vessels," the voice said in perfect English. "I am High Reaper Gorvok, commander of this fleet. You have taken something that belongs to us." Morrison grabbed his cum unit. "You've taken prisoners that you stole from their homes. Those are not prisoners, they are trophies. Just as your world will become a trophy when we add it to our collection, we'll have to get through us first," Morrison replied. Gorvak laughed, a sound like metal scraping against stone. "Captain Morrison, do you think we do not know who you are? We have been watching your species for years. You interest us. Why? Because you come from a death world, a planet so dangerous that it breeds warriors. We have conquered 47 worlds, but none of them produced fighters like humans. We want to test ourselves against the best." Morrison felt a chill. The Void Reapers hadn't just found Earth by accident. They had been hunting humanity specifically. "You will find that humans are full of surprises," Morrison said. "Yes," Gorvak agreed. "That is what we are hoping for." The connection ended. Morrison and his team finished their work and returned to their ship with the rescued prisoners and the stolen memory device. As Shadow's Edge moved away from the enemy fleet, Lieutenant Santos made a disturbing discovery. "Captain, I'm analyzing the data from that memory device. There's something strange about it." "What kind of strange?" "It's not just storing memories passively. It's actually communicating with something, like it's part of a larger network." Morrison studied the readings on his screen. "A network of what?" "I think every Void Reaper ship has one of these devices. They're all connected, sharing information across their entire fleet." "That could be useful," Morrison said. "If we can hack into their network, we might be able to learn their plans." "There's more, sir. The device is trying to connect to something else, something that's not part of the Void Reaper fleet." "What do you mean?" Santos looked worried. "Captain, I think there's another player in this game. Someone or something that the Void Reapers are in contact with." President Maria Castillo stood in the emergency command bunker deep beneath the White House. Through the reinforced windows, she could see the night sky filled with streaks of light as Earth's orbital defense platforms powered up for the first time. "How long until they arrive?" she asked General Torres, who was coordinating the planetary defense grid. 6 hours, Madam President. Maybe less." Torres looked exhausted. She had been working non-stop for 3 days, preparing Earth's defenses. The main Void Reaper fleet is massive. Our satellites count over 1,000 ships. Castillo felt the weight of 4 billion lives on her shoulders. Every decision she made in the next few hours would determine whether humanity survived or joined the 47 other species that had been erased from existence. "What about the rescued prisoners?" she asked. Captain Morrison brought back nearly 300 freed slaves from different boarding operations, are all willing to fight alongside us. That warrior Nix has been training our Marines in alien combat tactics. Colonel Ryan Park entered the bunker, his uniform dirty from the defense preparations happening all over the planet. He had been working with civilian authorities to prepare every city, every town, every settlement for the coming battle. "Surface defenses are ready," he reported. "Every major city has hidden weapon systems. The civilians know what to do if the enemy breaks through our orbital defenses." "How are the people handling this?" Castillo asked. Park smiled grimly. "Better than expected. When we told them that alien slavers were coming to destroy Earth, most people got angry instead of scared. Volunteers are lining up at every military base." Dr. James Cross rushed into the bunker carrying a datapad. He had been studying the memory device that Morrison's team had captured from the Void Reaper ship.
"Madam President."
"I've made a breakthrough," he announced. The device Captain Morrison brought back contains more than just memories. It's like a computer database of every civilization the Void Reapers have destroyed. "What kind of information?" Castillo asked. "Everything. Okay, military tactics, weapon designs, cultural knowledge, even genetic patterns. The Void Reapers don't just kill civilizations, they study them and learn from them."
"How?"
Command console. That explains how they've been so successful. They know the strengths and weaknesses of every species they've faced. "There's more," Dr. Cross continued. "I found records of species that successfully resisted the Void Reapers, at least for a while. Most of them had one thing in common." Castillo asked. "They were from dangerous worlds, planets with harsh environments that force their inhabitants to become tough and adaptable. Deathworlds, Park said quietly. Exactly. The Void Reapers have faced Deathworld species before, but never one as advanced as humanity. Most Deathworld civilizations destroy themselves before they develop space travel. Suddenly, alarms began. Sounding throughout the bunker, Torres looked at her screens and her face went pale. "They're here," she announced. The Void Reaper fleet just entered the solar system. On the main display screen, they could see hundreds of dark ships approaching. Earth. The enemy vessels were spread out in a formation that surrounded the entire planet. "Incoming transmission," the communications officer reported. "Put it through," Castillo ordered. The screen changed to show a tall figure in dark armor. Its face was hidden behind a helmet, but its voice was cold and mechanical. "I am High Reaper Gorvak, commander of the 47th Conquest Fleet. People of Earth, you have interfered with our operations. You have stolen our property. This your world will be added to our collection." Castillo stepped forward. "This is President Castillo of Earth. Those weren't your property. They were living beings with rights and freedom." "Freedom is an illusion," Gorvak replied. "Only the strong survive. Only the strong deserve to exist. Your species intrigues us, humans. You come from a world that should have killed you, yet you thrived. We want to see if the stories about Deathworld warriors are true." "You're about to find out," Castillo said firmly. Gorvak seemed amused. "We have brought an audience for your defeat. The survivors of every world we have conquered will watch as the famous human fighters kneel before us." The transmission ended. Torres immediately began issuing orders to the defense fleet. "All ships, prepare for engagement. Orbital platforms, charge weapons. This is not a drill." But before the first shots could be fired, something unexpected happened. Several Void Reaper ships began firing on their own fleet. "What's happening?" Castillo asked. Torres studied her sensors. "Some of the enemy ships are fighting each other. It looks like ... rebellion." Dr. Cross was working frantically on his analysis equipment. "The rescued prisoners we brought back have been broadcasting messages to the slave crews on the enemy ships. They're telling them that humans actually rescue prisoners instead of killing them. Hope is spreading through their fleet," Park realized. "The slaves are fighting back." On the display screen, they could see the chaos in the enemy formation. Ships were turning on each other, explosions lighting up the darkness of space. Then a new voice came over the communications system. This one sounded different, less mechanical. "Human commanders, this is Keth, formerly of the Void Reaper 15th Combat Division. I have taken control of my ship and 20 others. We request permission to fight alongside you." Torres looked at Castillo for orders. The president made a quick decision. "Permission granted, Keth. Welcome to the fight for freedom." The moment of hope was short-lived. High Reaper Gorvak's voice boomed over all communication channels. "Enough games," he snarled. "Begin planetary bombardment. Show these Deathworld insects what happens to those who defy us." The massive Void Reaper command ships began firing energy beams at Earth. But instead of hitting defenseless cities, the beams struck invisible barriers of energy. "Planetary shields holding," Torres reported with satisfaction. "Project Prometheus is working. All across Earth, hidden defense systems activated." What had looked like ordinary mountains revealed themselves to be giant weapon platforms. Space elevators that seemed to be for civilian use began firing massive cannons. Even the ocean floor erupted with defensive installations. "It's possible." Gorvak's voice came over the comm system. "No Deathworld species has ever developed such advanced defenses." "You made one mistake," Castillo replied. "You assumed that being from a dangerous world made us primitive. But Earth didn't just make us tough. It made us smart." The battle for Earth had begun in earnest. Human ships, aided by the rebel Void Reaper vessels and the freed prisoner crews, engaged the enemy fleet. In orbit, on the planet's surface, every human settlement from the Arctic research stations to the underwater cities revealed hidden weapons and began firing at the enemy ships overhead. Dr. Cross made another discovery as he continued analyzing the captured memory device. "Madam President," he called out urgently, "I found something." The device is receiving signals from outside our solar system. Something big is coming. More Void Reapers? Torres asked. No, Cross replied, his face pale. Something else. Something the Void Reapers call the Resurrector. According to these records, it's been chasing them across the galaxy for thousands of years. Park looked confused. Chasing them? You mean the Void Reapers are running from something? Yes, Cross said. And whatever it is, it's almost here. Fleet Admiral Kira Voss stood on the bridge of the massive battleship Earth's Fury, watching as space around her erupted in light and fire. The battle for Earth had been raging for 6 hours, and both sides had taken heavy losses. Admiral Her, communications officer, called out, "We're receiving a transmission from the edge of the solar system. It's huge, whatever it is." Voss turned to look at the main display. A new ship was approaching, but this one was different from anything they had seen. It was enormous, easily 10 times larger than the biggest Void Reaper vessel, and it glowed. With a soft blue light, "This is the Resurrector," a voice said over the comm system. The voice was ancient and sad, like someone who had seen too much pain. "I have been hunting the Void Reapers for 3,000 years. They have something that belongs to me." "Hi, Reaper," Gorvak's voice cut through the transmission, filled with fear. "The Resurrector has found us. All ships, prepare for immediate retreat." "There will be no retreat this time," the ancient voice replied. "You have run far enough." Watched in amazement as the massive ship moved between Earth and the Void Reaper fleet. Energy weapons that could destroy planets bounced harmlessly off its hull. "Humans of Earth," the Resurrector continued. "I am the last of my kind. The Void Reapers were once my children, my creations. But they became corrupted, turning into the monsters you see before you." Captain Torres, now commanding the defense station, opened a channel. "What do you want from us? I want to end this cycle of destruction, but I cannot do it alone. The Void Reapers carry within their ships the souls of every civilization they have destroyed. I need your help to free them, Dr. Cross." Monitoring. From the Planetary Command Center, activated his own communication link. "The memory devices." "You're talking about the memory devices?" "Yes, human scientist. Every world they have conquered, every species they have erased, still exists within their databanks. I have the power to restore them, but only if we can access their entire network." Tevik, the Malari survivor, spoke from his position aboard one of the human ships. "My people, ... they could live again?" "All of them," the Resurrector confirmed. "Every species, every world, every individual who was lost. But first, we must stop the Void Reapers from destroying anyone else." The battle changed instantly. The Void Reaper fleet began to retreat, but the Resurrector ship fired beams of energy that disabled their engines. One by one, the dark ships found themselves trapped. "Now, humans," the Resurrector said, "show me why you are called the Deathworld species." Voss smiled grimly. "All ships, final assault. Let's finish this." The combined human fleet, aided by rebel Void Reaper ships and crews of freed prisoners, launched their attack. But this time, they weren't trying to destroy the enemy vessels. We're boarding them, ship by ship. Freeing the slaves and capturing the memory devices, Nyx led one of the boarding parties, her forearms moving with deadly precision as she fought through corridors she had once walked as a prisoner. Beside her, human marines and freed slaves from dozens of species worked together with a unity that the Void Reapers had never expected. "This is impossible," Gorvak's voice came over the comm system. "We are the strongest. We have conquered everything." "No," Voss replied. "You conquered 47 worlds, but you never faced anything like this. You never faced people who refused to give up hope." The boarding operations continued for hours. Team after team of humans and freed slaves fought their way through Void Reaper ships, liberating prisoners and collecting the memory devices that contained the essence of destroyed civilizations. Captain Morrison, leading one of the largest boarding parties, finally cornered High Reaper Gorvak on his command ship. The alien leader was trapped in his own command center, surrounded by human soldiers and former slaves. "You cannot defeat us," Gorvak snarled. "We are eternal. You're afraid," Morrison interrupted. You've been afraid for 3,000 years. Running from your creator, destroying worlds to prove you're strong. But you're not strong. You're just scared children who never learned to face their mistakes. Gorvak raised his weapon, but before he could fire, Tevik stepped forward. Gorvak, of the Void Reapers, the Mellery said quietly, I forgive you. The alien commander froze. You destroyed my world. You killed everyone I loved. But I forgive you. Tevik looked around at all the humans and freed slaves. We all forgive you. For the first time in the battle, Gorvak's voice showed emotion. You, ... forgive us. Everyone deserves a chance to. Choose who they want to be, Morrison said. Even you. The Void Reaper leader dropped his weapon. Around him, his soldiers began to surrender. With the battle won, the real work began. The Resurrector ship moved to the center of the solar system, and dozens of human ships began transferring the captured memory devices to its massive data cores. Dr. Cross worked alongside the ancient AI, helping to process the information contained. In the devices, this is incredible, he said. The genetic patterns, the cultural knowledge, the individual memories, it's all here. Yes, the Resurrector replied. And now we can begin the restoration. The process took 3 days. The Resurrector's ship became a factory of life, using the stored genetic patterns and memories to recreate entire species. Ships began appearing around the ancient vessel, each one carrying the restored survivors of a destroyed world. Tevik stood on the observation deck of Luna Station, watching as a ship approached carrying his people. The Malari had been brought back from extinction, restored from the memories and genetic patterns stored in the Void Reaper databases. Thank you, he said to Admiral Voss, who had joined him. You gave us more than just revenge. You gave us hope. Nodded. That's what humans do. We don't give up, and we don't let others give up either. The former Void Reapers, now calling themselves the Wanderer Fleet, worked alongside their former victims to help with the restoration process. Gorvak himself had become one of the most dedicated workers, trying to make up for the pain he had caused. 3,000 years of destruction, he said to Morrison during one of their work sessions. How do I make up for that? 1 day at a time, Morrison replied. One good choice at a time. As the restoration continued, the Resurrector made an announcement to all the ships gathered around Earth. My long hunt is over, the ancient AI said. The Void Reapers have been stopped, and the lost civilizations have been restored. But more importantly, something new has been created here. Alliance of species who chose cooperation over conquest, forgiveness over revenge. President Castillo, now aboard the space station that had become the center of the new galactic community, addressed the assembled representatives of nearly 50 restored species. We came together in the face of extinction, she said. Now we have a choice. We can go back to being separate worlds, or we can build something better. Something that ensures no one ever has to face the darkness alone again.
All the votes
Was unanimous. The Galactic Restoration Council was born. With Earth as its headquarters and humans as its guardians, Admiral Voss stood on the observation deck of the new station, watching ships from dozens of worlds working together to build a better future. The Void Reapers had come to test the Deathworld warriors. But they had discovered something they never expected. Humanity's greatest weapon wasn't their ability to fight. It was their refusal to let hope die, even in the face of the impossible. The galaxy had been broken, but now it was being rebuilt. And at the center of it all was the simple truth that had saved them all. Everyone deserves a chance to choose who they want to be.